Feminist Buzzkills, the show that never has to ask their wife to fly the freak flag upside down. Or should I say blame? I don't know. I digress. And was it a freak flag or was it something worse? Unclear.
It was worse.
Right? I'm Liz Winstead. And of course, the lovely chiming in the background is my co-host, Moji Aloodale. Hey, Moj.
Hey, Liz. Hey, Buzzkills. New fuckery in Texas as the state places an anti-abortion quack onto their Maternal Mortality Committee. Her name is Ingrid Skop, and her game is dirty AF. Plus, Louisiana remains neck to neck in the race to the bottom. When they aren't removing work protections for child labor, they're classifying abortion pills as controlled substance. Because, of course, Miffy is the gateway to heroin. Joining us to talk about the latest oppression in the land of Mike Johnson is Louisiana Abortion Fund Development Director Tyler Barbarin.
And it's a three-guester this week. That's right. Also joining us is Nika Kovač, a Slovenian activist who is leading the charge to make abortion access a reality in the European Union, and they need our help. Plus, joining us to laugh and point at the state of the world, comedian and author Kate Willett is here to talk about navigating the myriad of relationship boundaries and her new comedy special, Loopholes. But first, I have become a fair weather basketball fan. Hooray.
Didn't expect to hear that.
For our longtime listeners, you know that I was born and raised in Minnesota, and I live part of the time there now. And the Minnesota Timberwolves are in the semifinals of the whole ball of wax in basketball.
I feel like you're saying a bunch of words and I don't understand any of them.
I'm talking like someone who's a fair weather basketball fan. And as we record this podcast, they will be playing after this podcast is recorded, and it will be the game that literally decides whether or not they will continue to try to get to the championship or they'll be eliminated. So I'm going to feel optimistic. It's very fun to be a Timberwolves fan because, first of all, the star of their team, Anthony Edwards, Ant-Man, they call him. We share a birthday, which I love. And second of all, they're playing against the Dallas Mavericks, who, let's be honest, Kyrie Irving is really fun to just root against.
Yeah.
To have so many people rooting against an anti-Semitic flat earther, COVID denier, it's amazing.
You know, flat earther is my line in the sand about all things.
Can you date a flat earther?
Never, not once, not even by accident.
Somebody dated a flat earther.
Not the me.
I love that you say that with defiance when you did date a guy who had a Confederate flag, who was black.
I did that. That's an actual thing. But I will say the Confederate flag came after we broke up.
But anyway, it's great. I'm going to say go Wolves. And I'm going to hope that when this podcast airs, that we're going to be cheering for the Wolves again, because I'm very nervous. They're down 3-1. So yikes. So
well, here you are having another reason to be excited about Minnesota. You really are the propagandist of that state.
But you know what? Is it propaganda if it's just true? I don't think so. Everything about Minnesota is awesome. And also their women's basketball team, the Lynx, are also nailing it. So, you know, we're good. And I feel like I know so little about sport ball that I'm sure we've lost half of our listeners. Because
I know.
That's enough sport ball for one abortion podcast. So we'll move on, I think.
Let's get to pinching off a steaming abortion news dump.
I feel like that's fair. All right. We got a lot of actual diabolical lies this week, starting off where else? Texas. Yep. The Texas GO pieces of shit got together and decided that you should face the death penalty if you ever try to terminate anything that results from a sperm slam dancing into your egg. And to ice the garbage cake, they've added it to their official party platform. Well, this gives a whole new meaning to the term walking the plank.
And speaking of new meanings, spray painting is now a federal crime. Yep. A woman who was so traumatized by her visit to a New York fake clinic went low-key Banksy and spray painted the word liars on their sign. Not only did the fake clinic press vandalism charges, they also filed domestic terrorism charges, the exact same charges created for abortion clinics to prosecute when they've been invaded by extremists or firebombed. So you got to ask, A, how can a fake clinic use laws created for real clinics? And B, isn't what she did technically just old school fact checking?
It is indeed. And finally, Tennessee continues its ethos. If you see something, say something inflammatory, and then make it a law. This week, Governor Bill Lee signed a bill that criminalizes abortion trafficking of a minor. Tennessee is the latest state to reframe helping young people get health care as abortion trafficking. And surprise, these laws don't stop actual trafficking. And in fact, they only serve to make abortion even more inaccessible in the volunteer state. Oh, and while you're at it, Tennessee, stop calling yourself the volunteer state because you just outlawed volunteering.
Listen, volunteering to send someone to jail for helping another person is not helpful to anyone. Anyway, this has been your steaming news dump. Let's get to some stories that we've wanted to break down further. Take it, Liz.
Louisiana politicians are booked and busy. Look at them go. Abortion bans, repealing child labor laws, and navigating Mike Johnson's colonize app. Impressive. The latest item checked off of their to-do list was to get a bill signed into law that would classify abortion pills as a controlled substance and make it a crime if you have them in your possession. Joining us to talk about this latest mess and to explain the landscape of Louisiana politics is Development Director of the Louisiana Abortion Fund, Tyler Barbarin. Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi.
Tyler, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us about the Louisiana Abortion Fund and tell us how you operate in a state that has no abortion?
Yeah, the Louisiana Abortion Fund is a fund that started in 2012, and it's our job to lower logistical, geographic, and financial barriers to receiving health care. And so, what that looks like in a state that abortion is illegal, it means that we are helping people to exercise their constitutionally protected right to travel and to receive the healthcare that is legal in states other than Louisiana. And so, what we are typically doing is reimbursing for childcare, doing wage reimbursement, doing travel and logistics planning, and then also funding people directly to clinics to receive the healthcare that they so choose.
So you're a practical support fund and an abortion fund combined. You do the whole spectrum of everything.
Yeah, fortunately, we are able to do both.
That's awesome. And we were just talking, our friends at Yellowhammer, and some of our friends in the South who are doing similar work. They're unclear of how they can legally fund people because of the laws. Does Louisiana have those kind of laws or those kind of laws impending even that would try to harm those of you who are trying to help folks access care outside of the state?
Yeah, so the unfortunate thing about being in the Gulf South means that the states that we inhabit typically like to copy one another. And so our friends to the west in Texas have legislation that criminalizes helping folks access care. And other states like Mississippi and Alabama are experiencing attempts at the same thing, and Louisiana is not far behind. So as of right now, helping folks to access care that is legal and protected in other states is not something that is criminalized, but that doesn't mean it's not something, that our legislators aren't very intent on criminalizing in the near future.
So, you've given us a bit of an overview of what you do, but can you talk just a little bit more about the landscape of pregnancy and abortion care in Louisiana? I mean, we've read some articles where they talk about people with non-viable pregnancies being forced into C-sections because doctors are unclear about, what the restrictions are and don't want to be seen as providing abortion cares. What are other ways that the laws in Louisiana are impacting not only pregnant people, but anyone seeking OBGYN care?
Yeah, I think unfortunately the reality is that there's always a chilling effect when laws go into place or even when they're threatened to go into place. People are really scared about what they can and can't do. And that's both from a person who may become pregnant and doesn't want to continue the pregnancy, but also from the provider perspective. So you have people who are really well intentioned, trying to help their communities, trying to show up for people and provide services that are really scared about what the legal implications of their job may become. And so I definitely think that there are people who are having to find creative ways around the current mandates and the current legislation, and then also people that are really fearful for something that may be legal on Monday and by Wednesday it's no longer legal, or it has some really serious implications like jail time, fines, or losing their license to practice. And I think the fear is also for people who are receiving care. A lot of what we've started to do is become a community education resource because people are calling in just asking purely, is it still legal to get an abortion in the United States, let alone Louisiana? And having to field those questions and also offer reassurance for people.
It's so interesting because when we all work within this movement, and we all know about abortion funds, but how hard is it for folks to even find you and to know that you exist, right? How is it that communities find you? Like, how do you do outreach, and how much of your time is spent just trying to let people know that you exist?
Yeah. So luckily, we have clinic partners, and that's across the country, that are able to provide recommendations for people to seek our services. And that's oftentimes how people find us is through referrals directly from providers. Another thing that's unique about the Louisiana Abortion Fund and is common in funds along the Gulf South and in the southern region is that we are really full reproductive justice organizations, meaning that we not only care about people in their time of needing access to healthcare, but also the whole life that they lead. And so we are trying to be more in conversations with people that are focused on maternal health and, child well-being. We're trying to get into conversations with people that are focused on the intersection of reproductive justice and climate justice. We're trying to be in more spaces so that people know we're not solely focused on abortion, though it is our mission to make abortion accessible for all people in the Gulf South. But B, that, there are other ways to tap into the movement and like we care about people from birth to the end.
Also, abortion is just a moment in someone's reproductive life, right? Like you have, the onset of your menstruation, you have all of the other things that could happen to a person with uterus. Abortion is just one of the steps that may happen to some people. Let's talk about particularly what's going on recently about the law that the governor signed this week, where Louisiana became the first state to reclassify mifepristone and misoprostol as a controlled substance. Can we just, before we even get into like what that is, like, let's talk about this BS excuse they gave for why this needs to be a law, as if like they're protecting pregnant people from people slipping them pills.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's very common for our legislators to do things under the guise of protecting, like, the downtrodden, misinformed person that is just going to be taken advantage of by the system or by other individuals, all the while perpetuating like extreme harm and increasing criminalization. And yeah, I just think that it's one of yet another example of people trying to have this moral high ground of we're doing it to protect people and we're doing it to, protect families and pregnant people and really doing the opposite. Instead, destroying ecosystems of care, destroying people's ability to feel safe in their reproductive decisions and in their futures. And I don't know, it happens all the time. It comes out all the time that we're supposed to just be grateful for these really, really awful and destructive bills that come from the Capitol.
I would love to talk about what this new legislation that the governor signed, this reclassifying of abortion drugs, what does it mean for people pursuing abortion care and for you as an abortion fund in helping people get that care?
So currently, as the bill stands, it would be for those who do not have a prescription. I don't ever want to parse out the language too much because we know that in actuality, it's going to be broad strokes. It's going to be attacking people whether or not the charges come to bear a sentence, that doesn't really matter. Entering people into the criminal justice system is enough of a stigma, enough of like a life altering experience that it's harmful. And so we stand against it full stop. But for now, those who are able to get a prescription are still able to access care, I believe. So it's another way of limiting the options that are available for people and limiting the ways that people can access care, meaning that it's going to increase demand and it's going to increase things like wait times at other clinics. It's going to increase the cost of abortion care because those who may have been able to get a medical procedure will have to then switch over to other types of abortion care because of the timeline at which they're able to receive the care that they deserve. And so it's going to have a very intense ripple effect. And for us providing care, it's not going to stop us from pursuing the ways that are legal to help people living in Louisiana, living in the Gulf South to access the care that they want and they deserve for themselves and their bodies. It's just going to mean, our legal team's going to have to work a little harder.
None of us here are lawyers, but the enforceability of this law seems a little wild to me because it is legal to mail them federally. But I'm just curious into how they think they're going to enforce this ridiculous law.
I do think though that is the point. Like the misinformation, the confusion and the chilling effect that it will have. People are going to be scared in ways that they previously were not to access the care that is technically still legal for them.
Hmm.
That is the intention, is to slow the number of people that know what is going on. And it's also, we know our people, poor people, Black people, people who, English is not their first language. The people that we serve the most are going to be the most impacted. They're going to be the most criminalized. They're going to be over policed and surveilled. So it's going to be enforced and it's going to impact our community, whether or not it's successful in the courtrooms.
Yeah, it almost doesn't even matter because of the way that it is talked about. And that becomes truth for people. The same thing that's perpetuated over and over again. We don't have control of the media or the information system or the pipeline to help people get what they need, and that part feels super frustrating. So you are doing such great work, and Louisiana just seems to be, can't stop, won't stop on trying to push these oppressive things forward. So tell our listeners how they can support you and something that you're working on that would really get people excited about.
So my number one thought is always don't abandon the South. And that's actually a training that we've been taking on the road and providing at different conferences and things, because most folks like a reaction to hearing that laws are being enacted and that things feel like they're slipping back into dark times is to say, why don't you leave? Or I'll never spend money in Texas. I'll never vacation in Louisiana ever again. I'm not going to Florida. But what that does is actually leave a bunch of people who are working really hard to make the world a better place in the dust. New Orleans is a majority hospitality city, and without tourism, we can't keep our economy afloat. And so we beg you not to abandon us, but instead to dig deeper into the activism on the ground and dig deeper in both listening to activists and uplifting our voices, not speaking for us, uplifting our voices, and then also donating time, energy, money, resource, whatever it looks like for you. We would love to have support.
Amazing. Tyler, thanks for coming on, uplifting that message, because it's something that we feel very strongly about at Abortion Access Front, and it's our mission. We travel around the country and simply do shows to platform people working in those communities so people can get to know them. And I think that's really crucial. We will put links to everything where they can donate and all of your socials in the show notes. And please come back and join us again, because it has been really great to hear about what's happening in Louisiana and all the great work you're all doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Tyler mentioned Texas, and Texas is constantly Texasing. So it seems like we cannot do a podcast without talking about Texas. And this week is no exception. Moj, what the fuck is going on in Texas?
Listen, I'd love to say Texas was back on their bullshit, but truth be told, Texas is always on their bullshit. The US has an exploding maternal mortality epidemic, and rather than try to confront it with facts and reason, the state just appointed an unserious medical quack who believes that abortion bans lead to better pregnancy outcomes. Anyway, she's been appointed to their Maternal Mortality Review Board, and I don't have high hopes.
Moji, I cannot wait to talk about this doctor who they've put on this board, but will you tell people what this board does, this Maternal Mortality Review Committee? Like, what is their function?
Absolutely. So this board is basically all Texans. It's called the Texas Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee. It's basically 23 people who have some relation to healthcare. Historically, it's been physicians, midwives, community advocates, but currently the board that was just appointed in the last few weeks is all people who work in healthcare, no community members, no patient perspective representative. And they just brought this Ingrid Skop in.
So who appoints these people?
They're appointed by this woman who works at the Texas Department of State Health Service. Her name is Jennifer Shuford. She's a doctor, and she was appointed by the governor of Texas.
Oh, yeah. So, if you're loading up Greg Abbott appointees, I'm sure that they're going to immediately get rid of community activists. And didn't they remove a community activist who was a Black woman and put this person on the committee?
This woman, her name was Nika Wilson, and she had actually almost died in childbirth in Texas. And she was a doula, and she was giving this perspective on the board. And they removed her and asked her to apply again. And when she applied, they rejected her and replaced her with people like Ingrid Skop.
Well, and also just before we get into Ingrid Skop, bum, bum, bum. Nika was part of a coalition in Texas who were demanding that the state, which is required in the state constitution, that they give maternal mortality outcomes every 2 years, that they give this report. And they missed the deadline in 2022, and they were late in 2023. And because of her circumstances, she was able to bring her experience to demand these outcomes. And people like her are so vital to these kind of administrative bodies because they're appointed by the governor. Now, they don't have legislative ability, but they're like the Department of Health and Human Services to create regulations, but they're influential, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's an unpaid volunteer position. But basically what they do is they look at why pregnant people or people who were recently pregnant have died. And then they look at the data and they try to make recommendations about what can be done to prevent these deaths, because about 80% of maternal deaths are found to be preventable. So if you have the information, you can just get ahead of it.
So it's important to have people who, without an agenda, looking at the clear data of why it is that people are dying. And this Ingrid Skop, who we're about to talk about now, is literally a physician who's an anti-abortion superstar who has written quack research papers that have been so debunked, they've been pulled from the research organizations that initially published them. And she has no interest in maternal mortality, and all interests 100% 24/7, 365 in ending abortion access.
And she does not seem to care about pregnant people. She has said publicly and stands 10 toes down in the idea that 9 and 10-year-olds who have gotten pregnant are able to give birth, which is horrific. And that's not the worst of things, she said.
She's literally admitted about herself that, quote, "My views on abortion safety are out of step with mainstream medical organizations." It's like, what? The kind of claim she's made, she said medication abortion is inherently dangerous and can result in a number of complications, especially if it's a self-managed abortion. Yet she's never treated anybody who has self-managed their abortion.
Not once. And we know this because she is one of the doctors involved in the case before the Supreme Court right now that can end our access to mifepristone. And when they asked, did any of these doctors have had any experience with people who've used mifepristone, they didn't have a one. So she was there and she didn't have anything to say in a legal document.
Nothing to say. And like we said, the research that was presented in this mifepristone case before the first judge, that Matthew Kaczmarek, who you've heard us talk about, the Texas judge, who's like, this is unbelievable. Oh my God, we must take mifepristone off the market completely. 3 of those studies from the Charlotte Lozier Institute have all been debunked. And that information, while it was debunked and while it was yanked from those publications, it still is in the record and is still before the justices of the Supreme Court. And whether or not they will take into consideration, as they were told that this information by Dr. Skop's organization and Dr. Skop was literally medical malpractice, they can choose to ignore it, which you would hope, or they can just act like they don't even have to ignore it and rule however they want.
And what they haven't done is taken it out of the record, right? And that organization she works for, she's the medical director of, is the Charlotte Lozier Institute. And it is the research arm of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life. So basically, she's, again, fully open about her anti-abortion stance. And she's not embarrassed. She's actually said very publicly that in her practice, she's encountered many women with physical damage and mental health issues directly related to abortion. Now, anecdotal evidence isn't true for everyone, but having had an abortion and a pregnancy, much more physical damage with the pregnancy.
And also, I just don't believe that people who are having abortion trauma are going to go to a doctor who has spent the lion's share of their public life demonizing abortion. That just isn't how those things go. You know what I'm going to do is find a therapist who's going to shame me for having mental illness. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's not how people pick their providers.
No.
I just want to bring like the actual harm she can bring, some of the actual harm she's done in Texas as a person with some standing as a medical profession. When Kate Cox, the woman who had a non-viable fetus in December, was going to the Texas Medical Board and trying to get an abortion in their exceptions because she's like, I have this non-viable fetus, I'm suffering. Dr. Skop, Ingrid Skop, signed an affidavit that said, actually, no, she doesn't actually qualify for any exception in this existing ban. She doesn't need it. She's fine carrying this non-viable fetus for another several months.
So think about that person being part of an influential body that assesses maternal mortality, that makes recommendations about maternal mortality, and then bringing garbage science and unfounded research so that these maternal mortality outcomes and why they exist could be based on her bullshit anti-abortion viewpoints and research. And that's really scary.
It's terrifying. And I just want to repeat, 80%, studies show 80% of maternal deaths are preventable. And if you have someone who is not actually invested in preventing maternal deaths, it seems really unsafe and really, really scary.
And just to sort of button up why we thought this was important, we have been following Dr. Skop at Abortion Access Front for a long time, because the first time that we were exposed to Dr. Skop was there was a congressional hearing about abortion care in 2021, I think it was, or 2020.
2021. It was before Dobbs.
And she was testifying before Congress along with friend of the pod, Dr. Moietti. And Dr. Skop said so many lies that Dr. Moietti literally had to cede some of her time to say it is against our medical ethics to purport lies, and people who do so could lose their license for doing it. And it was incredible. I think we have a clip of it.
Our country has very, very poor data on deaths related to abortion. There are many reasons for this. One is that there's really no clear federal mandate to report deaths related to abortion. I'm sure many members of this committee are aware that there is a maternal mortality crisis in our country across the board. And studies have documented that probably between 50 and 75% of even maternal deaths that occur related to childbirth, related to care in a hospital, many of those do not get reported on the death certificate. And there are various reasons for that I probably won't go into, but the CDC primarily draws their data from death certificates, and they are ignoring the fact that it is very, very difficult to document on a death certificate a death. For example, if a woman has an abortion and commits suicide out of guilt 6 weeks later, that will almost never be documented.
Dr. Moietti, we just heard an exchange about complications, and they're not reported and the data's vague. What do you know about complications and deaths from licensed clinics that provide medically supervised care with respect to abortions?
Thank you for that question. I'd like to first remind all OBGYNs that the American Board of OBGYNs has recently warned that spreading medical misinformation can result in loss of board certification.
Did you just hear misinformation?
I did just hear misinformation.
So for the record, Madam Chairwoman, we just heard misinformation according to Dr.
Yes.
Moietti.
It
Go
is
ahead.
incorrect that this data is not tracked appropriately, and in fact, in our state of Texas, this data is tracked from a clinic level, and it is actually legally required that every single day we report to the state who has had abortions and if they've had any complications. And in fact, now the state has passed a new law that I have to report complications that are not even related to abortion care that might happen 20 years later in a person's life.
So this woman who wrote a paper arguing that states with abortion bans will actually improve women's health outcomes will have some say in the policies that decide whether or not pregnant Texans live or die. And that is frightening.
That is frightening. And also, medical boards exist in every state except Idaho, which is wild. Idaho being at the center of so much abortion fuckery this year. But thinking about all of these non-elected people who get to influence it, it's very wise to look to see what kind of advisory boards are in your state and to see who's on them to make sure that the research and the information and the facts that they are bringing to this advisory board about maternal health is actually fact-based. So Dr. Ingrid Skop, all of this, of course, will be in the show notes, and yikes.
And you can find the best, most up-to-the-minute resources on accessing abortion care and funding for your care on our website, aafront.org. Our Charlie chatbot on the bottom right will walk anyone, anywhere in the country through their options and resources for abortion.
That's right. So let's get on to our next guest. And in doing so, we're going to cross the pond, Moji. She's the founding director of Institute 8th of March, an organization which is at the forefront of addressing gender and economic inequalities in Slovenia. Currently, her organization is working on a massive abortion accessibility campaign across the entire European Union called My Voice, My Choice. We are excited she is here to tell us about the campaign and how we can help make it a reality. Please welcome Nika Kovač.
Hey, Nika, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Nika.
Hey. So we're so happy to have you here. Can you just start, because we don't get to go to Europe much on this podcast, and tell us about the work of Institute 8th of March?
Institute 8th of March is a group of mostly women who are trying to change most of the stuff in the society. We are fighting against inequalities, and we started 7 years ago when we were between 20 and 25 with the Me Too campaign in Slovenia, and we did it in a different way. We collected testimonies, but then we said it's not enough to just raise the attention, but we also need to change some laws. So we did a huge campaign to change a law about rape in Slovenia, and we won. And this was the first victory that we had, and then we started organizing campaigns, fight the far right. And until now, we didn't lose a single campaign. So we decided to go one step bigger and to do a campaign on European level, which is much harder than we thought. And our mission is huge, which is to protect abortion.
Wow, incredible.
I met you in Slovenia when I went to speak about digital security and how to fight bullies online and how to protect yourself from bullies online. And it was same in America. When you fight against Me Too, when you fight against, the patriarchy, you get a lot of hate. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with people coming at you? Because I know you've had some very high profile people come at you just for defending people's civil rights.
Yeah, so our ex-prime minister, his name is Janez Janša. I call him Kitty Cat because then he's way less scary than he is. But he's like Donald Trump in Slovenia, or like Viktor Orban in Hungary. He's basically like an authoritarian leader. He attacked human rights. He took over the national media. He took over the police. He put the police on the street. It was like the environment where people were afraid to say his name. And we weren't. We said, like, we were calling him out. We were organizing things against him. And one thing that he has common with Donald Trump is that he tweets a lot. So he tweets around like 100, 150 tweets per day. And almost half of them were personally about me. Somehow he saw in me the biggest target, and he started to attack me on a daily basis. He was even doing these boomerish collage photos from my Facebook of me in different places and posting them every day. So he really wanted to create the enemy of the state out of, at that time, 29 years old girl. And our response was that we always fought back with kindness, with humor. But the scary thing is that even though most of the Slovenians really support us, there is like a small group of people who became really angry on us. And because he was the prime minister at that time and he was in position of power and he was speaking like this about me on his personal channels, but also on governmental channels, I stopped being a human for some people. So when they saw me on the street, they were saying to me all kinds of stuff. I got a lot of death threats. A lot of them ended on court where people admitted that they want to kill me. And also I was physically attacked on the street. And for us, like the first thing that we did is that we decided that we won't be afraid and that we will be just louder, because if they do anything to me, like our idea will be alive and it will be continuing to be everywhere. But then we met Liz, and we somehow realized that one of the stuff that we need to do is to be louder than them. Like that when they attack someone like they attacked me, that we need to put the love all around the people who are being attacked. And based on the example that Liz presented to us, we created a love army, which is every single time that a person on power is attacking someone, just spread people with glitter, love, unicorns. So we are trying to establish all kinds of solidarities. And right now in this European campaign, people pray for me because I'm promoting the abortion. People are again threatening me. People are doing all kinds of stuff. But for us, we are used to it. And we know that we just need to continue.
Nika, that's terrifying. I just want to say that, like, that story of being attacked by the prime minister is exhausting and terrifying. And I'm so sorry that happened.
We've seen what happens when figures like that attack people. It's really scary. Your resilience is incredible. And I feel so honored that in some small way that through the program that we work together on, that you and others like you can feel protected and have a support system around that, because that's really what scares them the most. So I just want to say thank you for all of your work. Let's talk about the landscape in the EU. There is this vast abortion landscape, right? That kind of goes from very accessible to not so accessible. Can you give us just a quick overview of some of the best countries that have access, the worst, and then some of the problematic sort of circumstances that you're navigating as you are in this fight?
Yeah, so I'm coming from Slovenia, and in Slovenia we have abortion written in the constitution. It was based on a fight of women when we became independent. Women from the left and from the right united and put abortion in the constitution. So we were actually the first country who had it. Now France is following us, which means that like you can get abortion. It's free, it's safe, it's accessible. And because we speak a lot about this, because we speak about protecting the reproductive rights, every year there is less abortion in the country. On the other hand, we have Poland, where abortion is still illegal, and where women are still being killed in Polish hospitals because doctors do not protect them, because they cannot protect them because of the law. And women in Poland are saying that when they got pregnant, their biggest fear is to be in the hospital because they don't know if doctor will let them die or not, because they don't want to provide abortions. Another country is Malta, where women still can go to prison if they have abortion. It's scary because not a single activist wanted to speak up publicly about their experience with abortion, because they say that you can get police on the door immediately. Then you have countries like Italy and Austria, and Croatia, where abortion is legal, but the doctors do not want to perform it. So basically you cannot get access to abortion. So people are traveling to other countries to get it. And in Austria, I was also really shocked because abortion is written in the penal code. So doctors cannot learn how to do abortion. And they have secret workshops on papayas, how to provide abortion to women. So basically the state is urgent. And what we are proposing to the European Union is that women can travel to countries where things are okay and do abortions there for free.
You know, when I met with you and we had that incredible luncheon with Croatian activists and Slovenian activists, to find out that in Croatia, abortion is legal, but 50% of the doctors won't provide it because they're Catholic, it was just so astounding to me. I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but there is a story of hope. Croatia is the strongest country in collecting signatures now. They are winning the game. They are doing it so well. So we are super happy that people actually support abortion. Fun fact is that abortion is supported more than 70% in almost all European countries. So it is a common value for what we are fighting.
It's basically places that have the most abortion restrictions that know how terrible it is to not have access to abortion. And I think that's a lot of why you're seeing that strength in Croatia. They know how bad it can be. That's their day-to-day life. And here in the US, we didn't have the best access. But since Roe fell and all these states have instituted these barbaric laws, it's really been terrible here. And I love that European politicians are just kind of, I don't know, it seems like some of them might be taking cues from the bad things we're doing in the US and trying to find ways to further restrict abortion care. So I just want to know, like, what are the ways you expect to use this to fight back at those restrictions? What are the ways that you hope that this campaign will battle that and really put you in a stronger place regarding access in the future?
And what is the campaign called?
The campaign is called My Voice, My Choice, because we are also inviting people to come to European elections and vote for politicians who will support our initiative. But what is campaign? So in Europe, you have this amazing opportunity that if you collect 1 million signatures for a proposal, people in European Parliament and Commission need to talk about this and make decisions about this. So what we are proposing them is that they basically establish a financial mechanism which will provide women throughout the Europe safe and accessible abortion in different countries. What people need to do, they need to sign the initiative. It is on the page of European Commission and on our webpage, My Voice, My Choice. And then we need to elect leaders who will be supporting this cause and push the European Parliament to protect it. We think that, like, we don't want to be US. I'm really sorry.
We don't want to be the US
We don't want to
either.
be the US either.
Yeah, but we keep saying we don't want to be US. We want to do something out of your shitty situation, something beautiful for Europe. And this is what we are fighting for.
So within this My Voice, My Choice campaign, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not asking necessarily Malta to change its laws. You're saying if you're a person who lives in Malta, you will be provided transportation and you'll have your procedure cared for, and you will not be punished for leaving Malta for having care. Is that, am I right on that?
So basically, if you're from Malta, you will get procedure paid in any other country where it is legal. People will still need to pay for their own transport. But for example, in Poland, they are saying that this will lower the costs for them for more than 50%. So it's a huge thing and it's only a beginning. And yes, what is the beauty of this solution is that we go past beyond the national environments and past beyond men who are deciding about our bodies in our own countries, but we are trying to do something bigger and stronger.
Well, so you're saying you need 1 million signatures. When do you need them by to make this fantastic plan go into effect?
And how many do you have?
We have now 300,000, but we need much more. But usually people collect for European Citizens Initiative signatures for 1 year. We didn't want this. We are collecting them now for a month. And we are the fastest growing European Citizens Initiative because we want to collect them till European elections. Why? Because we want to put pressure on politicians and show them that this is something that they need to decide about and that they need to protect it. So yeah, we are doing it still, and we hope to finish it as soon as possible.
Is there a deadline where you need to have it be finished by?
The official deadline is in 11 months, but our own deadline is 10th of June.
Got it.
So let's talk about how you're getting them and the mechanisms around it. From what I understand, of all of the countries in the EU, what is there, 27?
Yes.
27 countries in the EU. You need all of these million signatures to come from 8 countries. Is that correct? You have to have at least 8 countries?
Yeah. So 8 countries needs to reach the threshold of a certain amount of signatures. And the happy news is that we reached this threshold in Slovenia, in Finland, in Croatia, in Greece, and in Poland. So we have 5 countries who did their job amazingly till now, and we are waiting for others to do the same. But then we need to collect the signatures in all possible countries and places in Europe. And how people are doing this, they go online and they sign it online. It don't take more than 2 minutes, but also on the streets. So for example, in Slovenia, every Saturday we have stands in more than 16 cities where people come, sign, and we're super proud on it. And the same are doing in other countries.
So let's talk about the coalition that you're working with, because I think, we've talked about Institute of 8th of March, but how many folks are you working with organizations in how many countries are involved in this initiative?
My first response was too much because it's really hard to coordinate all of this. Right now, in our coalition, there is more than 200 organizations from every single European country. So it is huge, and the organizations are still joining. And we are now inviting also political parties to support us. But I can speak about like some of them because, like, for example, in Finland, we have a feminist organization which is named Unioni, and they are older than Finnish state. So women in this organization were fighting for like all sorts of stuff, and now their fight is abortion, and they are rocking it. Like they created like a coalition of like 100 NGOs, I think, just in Finland. Like they working with influencers. They have influencers also from OnlyFans. It's such an interesting mix of people who are breaking social bubbles. So this is like the Finnish organization. Then, for example, I want to speak also about the Greek story, where we got the most famous TV host. Like she's hosting TV news. And Natasha, her name is Natasha, she said, I will support you and I will support your fight. So she organized a group of like strong women to start a campaign about this, and they collected the signatures till the threshold in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And then like in Croatia, we have like an association of different NGOs, but who did a change? The most famous Balkan pop singer, who in one moment said like, I will support you. She did a video. She got tons of attacks. She didn't need a love army because she was defending herself, like, and all the women who were attacked. And like, she basically initiated the whole movement. So we have so many different and amazing people in this whole campaign who are like fighting for a change. And I really, really hope that more of them will join, because we never had that kind of coalition of groups in Europe who can stand up together and fight for something beautiful, not fight against, but fight for a positive change.
Well, I've also seen some pretty big American influencers, people, actors, and people coming forward and supporting you. Talk about how that can make a difference. You know, we don't only export shitty laws and misogyny. Sometimes we also export kind of cool art and actors and stuff like that. So talk a little bit about who in America is talking to the people of the fans in the EU to support your cause.
So basically, it came as a big surprise that Mark Ruffalo supported us at Oscars, and people love Hollywood in Europe. And for me, like I can speak about my personal experience. It was the first time that for a couple of days I didn't get death threats and I didn't get attacks, because people had a feeling that the cool crew is supporting me. So it means a lot of safety for every single activist which is involved in this campaign, but it also means that like we are working on something together across the borders. And I'm happy for every single possibility where I can speak like I'm speaking here today, because basically it is showing that we are connected, that we are protected, and it means much more peace for us and much more support.
Besides being super famous Marvel action stars, how can everyday Americans or people living in America help and be involved?
I think that like just spread the voice about the initiative. I think that people can learn so much from this and can show to other people that like change is possible. Like we have a sign which is like 2 fingers in a heart. If you take a photo, send it to us, we will be happy. If you send us a message of support, we will be beyond happy. And we are also really happy if people from US are speaking about their own experiences, because we usually think that everything is better in US. And when people realize that someone from US can say to us, hey, we envy you, like you have the possibility to do something concrete, we would die for that kind of opportunity, people feel much more encouraged.
Amazing.
And what about European citizens living in the US? How can they be involved?
They just need to sign this thing. Like this is what we need, and we need them to convince 5 more friends to do it. And those 5 more friends need to convince 5 more friends to do it.
Oh my God. Well, your social media is killing it. Like it's so fun to watch how much information you're packing in, and also just how you're jumping onto all of the American greatest shits. Like I literally saw a meme about Harrison Buckner, and I was like, wow, they are like on all of our misogyny and patriarchy. Like it happens and you're in, and it's really great. And we're going to put for everyone in the show notes and everywhere where they can follow you on social. where they can sign the petition and do all of that. Final thoughts, final asks, final pleas to our listeners. Nika, what do you got?
Basically, the main message that we have is that we have an opportunity to Europe to ensure safe and accessible abortion for everyone. And this is why people need to sign our initiative and share it around, because this is the only way how the change is possible. Polish women were screaming on protest, "You never walk alone," because they were saying this to families of women who died. And we are saying to each one of us, like, you're not walking alone, and you can prove this with a signature.
It's incredible.
Incredible.
My Voice, My Choice is where you can follow them online. What is the website?
myvoicemychoice.org.
myvoicemychoice.org. Follow them everywhere. Sign the petition if you are an EU citizen in the United States, or if you're listening to this in the EU, sign this petition. Volunteer to take to the streets to get petition signatures. Do it, do it, do it. Nika, your activism is so inspiring. I am so proud to know you. And if there's any way that, Moji and I can come on over and help with this fight, let us know, because we'd love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least you always save us. So, I think that the last thing we will do is that we will call you and you will get last 100,000 signatures, with us.
I'll come in and I'll come in for the kill.
Thank you so much to both of you. It means a lot.
Thanks, Nika. Safe travels.
Thank you. If you're a citizen in the EU, be sure to sign the European Citizens Initiative, My Voice, My Choice, for free and accessible abortion in Europe. The last day to sign is June 9th.
So do it. This is Code Red. Now, how about some fun? It's time for the party game that is faster than Monopoly, more fun than Taboo. It's 6 Degrees of Abortion. We haven't played this for a while, Moj.
No, we really haven't.
I feel like I haven't been here for a while. So for those of you newbies, this is a game where Moji picks a story from the week's news, and I have 6 chances to somehow link it to abortion. Let's see if the Moj can stump me this week. What do you got?
I don't know if I can, but I still like this story. So last week, Cher was in Cannes for the film festival, but mostly to perform at the AmFAR Gala. And so I would love you to spend a little time linking Cher to abortion.
Good old Cher. So I would say, let's see, there's a couple of ways to bring Cher around to abortion. And I would say, let's see, Cher's husbands. I think I'll go that route. So Cher's famous husband was Sonny. And we all know that after Sonny was a part of the Sonny and Cher dynamic duo, they divorced. And Sonny became a congressperson.
Oh, that I did know that. Which state? The California, right?
California. Yep. He was, and as a Republican.
Oh,
yes. And as a Republican congressperson from California, he voted on legislation. He voted to, most notably, as most every asshole in Congress did, to keep the Hyde Amendment in place. And the Hyde Amendment, as we know, is the law that says that no federal funding can go to abortion. So Cher to Sonny to the Hyde Amendment to abortion.
so clean, so fresh, so well done, Liz.
Thank you. I know. That's a good one. I like Cher because I was like, how could I go? Because I was like, she was also married to Greg Allman, which was not great for Cher. Also, Cher's got it going on.
She does. She's always right. Yeah.
She's always right. She's always fair. She's always Cher. Hello. I'll be here all week.
Well, let's get to our next guest. New York-based comedian and writer Kate Willett joins us today to talk about her new comedy special, Loopholes, where she talks about gender politics, being a feminist, and of course, abortion. But first, here's a little taste of her sense of humor. Let's listen.
All my friends in the Bay Area are polyamorous, and all my friends where I live in New York are like married with a kid, and both groups are trying to sell me on their lifestyle, and I'm just holding out for an additional option where there's not a third person crying. So.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Please welcome Kate Willett.
Hi, Kate.
Hey.
I love that clip. I actually have been repeating it to all kinds of people in my life. It is so funny.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, also, I am not poly, but having been in a relationship with someone who is poly, and it's like, I just want you to show up at the time you're going to. And when I get mad at you for being late or just like an irresponsible dick face, it's like, oh, you just really are feeling conflicted about this. And I was like, no, I just want to go to bed by 11. So I want you to come eat, get the fucking done, go do whatever you want after 11. But like, please don't try to act like that is a thing.
Yeah, I mean it's weird too. Like I don't think this is just like poly guys, but I do think that there is like this thing with like, progressive guys in general where they've like learned how to kind of weaponize the therapy language and they're like, I hear that it made you feel really unsafe when I came home late. And you're like, no, I don't want you to hear that I feel unsafe. I just want you to show up, dude. Just calm down.
Oh, I have a kid. I think I was repeating it to a bunch of moms. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that third person crying is way too real.
Yeah.
I know the weaponizing of language is so that is so true. It's like, I'm not feeling unsafe. I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
Right.
And I made dinner to eat at a time that we both agreed upon time
Yeah, exactly.
for us to eat it.
Yeah, there was that whole like Andrew Huberman article a few weeks ago. Did you see that?
No, but please do tell.
He's like this very famous neuroscientist that has a podcast. He is a neuroscience professor at Stanford, I believe, but he had like 5 girlfriends who all did not know about each other. I think it was 5. Maybe it was 4, maybe it was 6, but they all didn't know about each other. But he was like so good at the like therapizing apology and like the whole like, I hear you, I see you, that he just like maintained this ruse with all these ladies for so long. Yeah, I don't know. Warning sign. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I just feel like managing 5 people's emotional expectations just sounds like, how good is that sex? You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
gosh, yeah, I know.
I just don't have the energy. I like barely am managing my own emotions. Why would I take on 5 other people's?
I completely agree. Yeah.
I knew a guy once he was in a relationship with 2 people, and both of the relationships were intimate enough where the person left stuff at his house, like in his medicine cabinet, and he would take a photograph when the last woman left of what everything looked like, and then replace it back with the other woman who was coming over, so that it was psychotic.
Why?
I understand like I'm not a cheater, but I understand why somebody would like try to get laid on the side. Like the motivations for that make sense. But like whenever somebody's like maintaining like a whole other relationship, I knew this guy growing up that had a whole secret second family that came out, like had kids with someone else. Like both women believed that he was their only life partner. And I'm just like, what? Like that must be so much energy to maintain that kind of life.
What do you get out of it? I just don't see. Maybe the game is the fun. I remember one male friend telling me that he was non-monogamous and he just socialized his different women in different social circles. I don't think I have 2 social circles.
Also, there's this great British comic, but she has a whole joke about the real tell that there is not equality in the world is that you never hear about a woman who has a second family. It's always men. And it's like, cause you never hear like, and I think the joke goes, you never hear a woman be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm raising the kids and I just, finished making dinner. And then I'm going to sneak over to my second family where I'm going to also raise the kids and make the dinner and clean the toilets. Like there's no imaginary world where a woman gets to have 2 completely separate families.
Yeah, plus you can't really hide a pregnancy.
It's tough. I mean, it happens occasionally, but it's tough.
If anyone knows, I would say that you 2 probably have understood, the whole range of things that goes on.
My grandmother actually did not know she was pregnant until she was giving birth to my mom. So I feel like I have the capacity to hide a pregnancy, but I've given birth once, or I carried one pregnancy to term. And it was real obvious after the 5th month that there was someone else inside my body. So I don't know. I don't know. I lost that capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you even
think what's happening. You're just like, I've had terrible indigestion for the past 7 months. It's like I'm being kicked in the stomach. This is
I just want to say it was the 50s. What were they doing there? I don't know if it was
Yeah.
healthcare.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So much. So Kate, as a comic, I'm always just fascinated talking to women and female presenting people and asking them, at what point did you decide that you were going to be funny for real for a living? Like that you just made this decision for yourself that this is what you're doing.
So I used to be an actor more. I still do acting, but I used to do like a lot of like theater. And I was in a Shakespeare play that was like in the park of San Jose or something, and then it got canceled like halfway through the rehearsal process because the budget got cut or the space got cut or some kind of bureaucracy thing. And then I decided to go to an open mic that night that I got that news to just be like, well, maybe I could try performing in some other way. And then I really loved it. It was just like kind of an immediate love affair with stand-up from there.
Liz, did you experience stand-up the same way? Like, oh my gosh, this is me. I want to do this forever. I'm not a comic, so
I just decided to do stand-up because I literally was the youngest of 5 kids in my family, and I wanted to find a place where I could complete a sentence uninterrupted. And I just had some things to say, and I felt like saying them. It's like I've said a million times on this podcast and all the time. No one asks women to center themselves, or you have to decide you're going to do that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to decide that what you have to say matters. And I think the tricky part for women is acting like you matter a lot of times.
Yeah.
Kate, I've been listening to your special Loophole a few times, also because I sometimes can't concentrate, and I love it.
Oh, thank you so much.
One of the things I really love about it is the way you're like really matter of fact in how you explore sex positivity. It's just like really matter of fact. There's no questions like, oh yeah, I'm just saying these things. More statements. It's like less of an invitation for anyone to comment in any negative way. And I'm like, how did you decide that these are the topics that you wanted to hit in this particular special?
I think that like living in the Bay Area for a long time, and then even after I moved to New York, like I've always kind of hung around with, very progressive, sex positive communities. And I think that's good. But, my actual experience of it, it's like, it's always a little complicated, right? Like we were just talking about, like even the most, enlightened, progressive, like feminist dude, like actually being in a relationship with that dude, like you may end up getting asked to do like all the dishes. And, I guess one thing I've thought about a lot over the years, just in my own life, is like, how the kind of like how it's like one thing to have a set of ideals, but actually trying to enact them, you can feel a lot more ambivalence than people who maybe are on the outside of it, imagine.
I know the gender spectrum, it's like, I remember feeling like men who are progressives were super excited about the sexual revolution because of the sex and nothing else, like zero other things. It's like you said, Kate, everything remained the same. The gender norms, just all of it was just like, oh, but you want to be up for my job now?
Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot too. Like, I don't think I had this joke in the special, but I was thinking about like that the same guy that I made fun of a lot. And like he was one of these dudes that was very like his like sex positivity was like, yeah, back when, before capitalism, like, people were, all in a family and taking care of each other. And, like basically this to him, it's like a lot of dudes who use that kind of rhetoric, like it just ends up meaning like everyone should sleep with each other. Like I am waiting for a guy like that to be like, yeah, before there was monogamy, we all used to take care of all the old people together. And so I've decided to knock on my next door neighbor's door and ask her if she needs help with her groceries. Like I'm just waiting.
Says no man never. Says no man.
Yeah,
ever.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's just about like, oh, you should be constantly, cool. Like women are DTF now. We love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's, I'm going to go next door and ask that elderly woman if she would take her teeth out and blow me.
Yeah. That seems so much more realistic. Like, oh yeah, I see that happening for sure.
And then maybe I'll snowblow her sidewalk,
Yes.
because I am part of the community. The special, I love it because it is just like, it just talks about what your life is. And a lot of how you live your life is just outside of heteronormative, the bounds that we know. And it's also in a time where the more that society knows and understands that there's more than two genders and that there's all this other stuff happening, it's scarier and scarier to talk about this shit because it's being weaponized against us. Do you feel freaked out about it in any way? Like, how are you navigating that?
I think that I'm very insulated from some of the worst things because I live in New York and, just am around a lot of very, progressive and thoughtful people, even though, as we said, there are some gross guys in there too. But I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm, been super lucky to live in New York and California, and some of our friends in red states, are having a completely different experience. I think that when I tour and, go places like Texas and stuff, there always are a lot of people there that are, amazing and, very forward thinking and accepting, but then they're in this sea of people who are very antagonistic, not just to their beliefs, but about who they are. And you guys, I love the work that you do supporting people, even in those places where their government does not support them.
Oh, you've got to. You have to. Also, I also am insulated in New York, but what we know is that even the legislatures, right? It's not even most people. That's just the people who are making the laws and are in power.
Yeah.
But we love a comic that talks about abortion, and you absolutely do. We are the Abortion Podcast.
Hell yeah.
There are others, but ours is premiere. And why is it important for you to include abortion in your work?
I mean, to me, it's just such a fundamental of bodily autonomy. I think with all these things we've been talking about, just that every gender has the right to decide, what we want to do, with our own bodies. And, to undermine that is just very disgusting to me. Whether that's, by not respecting someone's consent or by trying to make a law that says that the government gets to decide instead of an individual. I feel like it's really a kind of in addition to the very practical material consequences, it's also just super gross to think that Ted Cruz is gonna have any say
in anything. Let's be honest. In anything.
Yeah, in anything. Yeah. I was trying to think of a word, but I was like, no, I could just end the sentence there. It would still be good. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and also just to me, it's even worse because they've sat there and thought about these false gestational limits and all this shit. So they've sat there diabolically being like, I'm going to decide exactly the moment I get to be the decider, and that part is just ew. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why don't you decide to fix your own shit? Yeah, it's just super gross. So we thought it would be fun, Kate, to ask you, in the wake of horrible people giving hot takes during commencement speeches, we thought it would be fun to ask you what your commencement speech would be, especially if you were speaking directly to the men. And by the men, of course, we mean Harris and Butker. Well, what diabolical lie would you expose to them given the opportunity?
Okay, I'm gonna have trouble doing this in speech form, but one thing I was thinking about Harris and Butker and, just all this trad wife thing that, we see now in general is it's always portrayed being a trad wife or something is going to be so relaxing. And I totally support people staying home, but if they want to, but it's it is so scary to be totally financially dependent on someone else. I broke up with somebody who really sucked. I wrote about him in the special, but a few years ago, and I was like, man, if I had to sort out money with this guy too, either I was dependent on him for my survival, or perhaps even worse, if I had to pay this guy money every month. Like that would be hideous. I would be so mad. It would make the breakup 10 times worse. So, I would just say to young women, really, really, really make sure that you protect yourself and that you have an out, some money saved if you're ever going to consider becoming financially dependent on anyone. And for men, that's not something that you should expect or want, like that it's up to your partner, like what she or they want to do with their life. And you can't expect someone to like give up everything else to make you their whole world. It's not even particularly a healthy way to have a relationship. Like even if you're a person that decides to stay at home, like you still have other things in your life that, fulfill you and are important.
Oh my gosh, Kate, you gave us such an authentic answer. I really thought you were going to give us something much more wacky.
No, it's good.
I'm co-signing everything you said.
It also sets up this idea that like, if you were somebody who was going to be a stay-at-home parent, what are the guarantees that the person who is financially supporting is going to remain healthy, being able to have that job, going to have a job that can support all these children you're pumping out and all of this whole lifestyle. The supposition of all of it is so weird to me that I don't even understand it. It's very easy for a guy who gets paid bazillions of dollars to kick a ball to have this, classic trad wife dream family that is good for you. I'm glad for you.
It's
sir.
also so rude for him to tell, like, oh my gosh, college, for me at least, felt like the beginning. It is for a lot of us, the beginning of our adult life, like your commencement, and to sort of see you at the beginning of your adult life and like have a man show up at your celebration and tell you, it's time to start with the babies. Like that's your adult life from here on. Like, good luck with that.
Yeah, at their graduation it's just outrageous. It's not like he just randomly said that. And it's like he showed up, and instead of like validating their accomplishment and their hard work for the past few years, he's like, none of this means anything.
It's a diabolical lie.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even like a suggestion. It was like, here is the way that they have tried to fuck you harder than they've ever tried to fuck anyone with this one idea that you should go to college for 4 years and that you'll be happy doing that thing that made you happy for 4 years that you spent $120,000 on. That's the lie. I mean, wow, that is some inspo, buddy. I'd rather hear Seinfeld.
It really does feel like he said, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you guys outside. We don't expect to see you outside again after this, right? Like into the house with you. I hope to never see you again. Get to your babies and your housewifing. It's wild. It's wild at a moment of celebration to feel like that's an appropriate message for anyone.
Yeah, it's really, really tacky, among other things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This was really, really fun, and your special is hilarious.
So much
Thank you so
fun.
much for having me.
Are you on tour? What are you up to these days? Where do people find you?
I'm on tour, coming all over this spring and summer. You can check out my dates on my Instagram, kate.willett, Willett on Instagram, or my website, Kate Willett. And, I have dates coming up in Denver, Fort Collins, Asheville, Northern California, Portland, Seattle, a bunch of other places. So hop on there and come see me in real life.
That's awesome. We'll put all of that in the show notes. Abby, and you're lucky to go see her. So if she's coming to your town, go do it, people. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
That's our show. Thanks for listening. And thanks again to Tyler Barbarin of the Louisiana Abortion Fund and Nika Kovač of the March 8th Institute. And be sure to sign the My Voice, My Choice petition if you're a citizen of the EU. If you're not, share the campaign and help raise awareness.
Did we make you smarter, make you laugh today? Show us some love by liking, subscribing, and giving us 5 stars. Plus, stay connected with us on social media at Abortion Front across all platforms. With you, we can get more people to learn about this assault on abortion access and do something about it. Also, one way that's really important is that you can sign the latest Abortion Access Front petition to repeal the Comstock Act, the 1873 law that could destroy access to abortion as we know it. Go to aafront.org, sign the petition to let people know we do not want to live in 1873. Moji, take it away.
Some other action items are joining the 5-part activist training series, Operation Save Abortion, at operationsaveabortion.com. And visit our super cool activist calendar, which is full of local and national actions and educational opportunities. This week's featured action is for our local New York folks. On Saturday, June 8th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., the New York Civil Liberties Union is looking for volunteers to join them in tabling at Brooklyn Pride. This in-person event is a great way to take action with like-minded folks. Link is in our activist calendar and in the show notes.
Next week is going to be a mystery, folks. One thing we do know is that we have the amazing musical comedian Sarah Hester Ross talking about her new comedy special, Don't Mess with the Redhead, but also we are on SCOTUS watch. So the whole show could turn upside down as we might or might not have one of the two Supreme Court decisions to break down. So that means we might be breaking down.
What you can do before we all break down is join our Patreon. You'll support great content and get cool FBK merch and experiences. All pledges support this pod and all of our activism at Abortion Access Front. Pledge at patreon.com/feministbuzzkills. FBK is edited by Remy de Tournay and is produced by Abortion Access Front.
And finally, you know who votes in every election? Guys like Christian nationalist podcaster Steve Cruz. Remember that as he shows us his whole ass when he's telling you how he thinks you should be punished for your abortions.
The person who paid to murder this baby and consent to kill it, they're never held accountable for that murder. And pro-lifers are pro-life, pro-older life. They never want to hold the mother accountable for this. The mother decided to murder her baby. That's murder. She should be tried and convicted, dig a hole and put her down.
Feminist Buzzkills, the podcast from Abortion Access Front. New episodes drop Friday. When BS is poppin', we pop off. And if you want to support our podcast and all the work of Abortion Access Front, like, subscribe, and join our Patreon at patreon.com/feministbuzzkills.
I'm Allison Gill, that's AG from Mueller, She Wrote in the Daily Beans, the premier podcaster for all things special counsel.
And I'm Andrew McCabe, former acting director of the FBI and unlucky guy who was right in the middle of getting Robert Mueller appointed special counsel in 2017.
And we're joining forces to document the investigations of Trump by the newly appointed special counsel Jack Smith as it happens.
Whether it's analyzing court filings, letters, indictments, or prosecution and defense strategies,
or asking questions about special counsel regulations, rules governing classified documents at trial, or the scope of the probes.
We'll be here first thing Sunday mornings to cover the latest breaking special counsel news and answer your questions with the assistance of some of the best experts out there.
So follow, rate, and subscribe to Jack wherever you get your podcasts, your only source for all things special counsel.